Hey guys, and welcome back to Royalty Now Studios, where we recreate figures from the past in the modern day and talk about their history. My name's Jordan, and I'll be your host for today's episode. Today, we're talking about Mansa Musa I. Was he really the richest man who ever lived? Let's find out about his lavish life, as well as see some recreations of his appearance from the only known portrait of him. As a quick reminder, if you like our content, please make sure to like and subscribe. You can also find us on Instagram at royalty_now_, as well as on Etsy and Patreon. Links are in the description below, so without further ado, the lavish life of Mansa Musa. The most common refrain about Mansa Musa is that he was the richest man who ever lived. Musa I ruled the North African kingdom of Mali from 1312 to 1337, greatly expanding its borders and trade routes. Unfortunately, much information about his appearance and his reign has been lost. There is little in the way of indigenous histories of the kingdom. We have to rely on surviving oral traditions, as well as European and Arabic chronicles to tell the story of Mali and its rulers. As an example of just how little information we have from back then, even locating the capital city of Mali has proven elusive. Various Arabic contemporary sources mention the Malian capital, and some even visited, but they never definitively mention a precise name or location. What we do know is that Mansa Musa, meaning King Musa in the Mandinka language, was not in the mind of letting himself go into history forgotten. Musa would show the world that the Mali Empire was much more than they could have ever imagined. In the event that would define his legacy, Mansa Musa, a devout Muslim, undertook a pilgrimage to Hajj in Mecca in 1325. Now, there are various differences in accounts, but what we know for certain is that the king's grandeur and magnificence during this pilgrimage was second to none. The pilgrimage covered 2,700 miles, with an entourage of 60,000 people, including 12,000 slaves. The slaves were said to be carrying 4 pounds of gold each. There were 80 camels, each with 50 to 300 pounds of gold dust. Mansa Musa provided everything for the caravan, including clothing and keeping everyone fed, but also including a traveling mosque that was erected for prayer. Every night when they stopped to camp, a city bloomed from the desert. But what was all the gold for? Was it all for show? Well, yes, but no. Mansa Musa, in all his generosity, gave gold to the poor in each city along his way. In fact, the amount of gold that he injected into the economy was so vast that it literally created a 10-year-long gold recession in Cairo because gold had lost so much value. Now, just like most things with Musa, it is shrouded with the mystery of time. But we do have some accounts of his visit. One of the most famous comes from 14th century Arab historian Shihab al-Umari, who is in the city some years later. He reiterates Mansa Musa's generosity while on his pilgrimage, stating that he flooded Cairo with his benefactions. He left no court, emir, nor holder of a royal office without the gift of a load of gold. They spent gold until they depressed its value in Egypt and caused its price to fall. Now, was he really the wealthiest man that ever lived? Some sources have estimated his wealth as equivalent to $400 billion today, a feat that is only now beginning to seem achievable, almost 700 years later. Unfortunately, it's impossible to measure the exact amount of gold King Musa held on to. I'll tell you one last thing about Musa, though. When Musa finished his pilgrimage and made his way back home, he returned with much less gold than he had set off with. But he came back with scholars, with knowledge for his people, and an architect from Cairo that would end up building one of Africa's most iconic buildings, which at the height of its fame had 25,000 students and held up to 1 million books. More books than there were ever at the Great Library in Alexandria. Mansa Musa was rich no longer only in gold, but also in fame around the known world, and in knowledge for not only himself, but generations to come. Now, with the recreation, Becca wanted to make kind of an artistic version of Musa I, strictly because only this one near-contemporary image was made of his likeness. This image is from the Catalan Atlas, which was illustrated by a Jewish illuminator named Abraham Cresquis in 1375. The full atlas shows a medieval map of Europe, North Africa, and the Mediterranean. It illustrates the rulers and emperors, showing them perched upon their own territories. In Africa, it depicts Mansa Musa wearing a crown and holding up a nugget of gold, sitting on his kingdom of Mali. Obviously, these depictions are a bit cartoonish and likely didn't represent Mansa Musa's real appearance. However, it is something, and it's the best jumping off point we could get for the famous king of Mali. Other than that, we only have some loose descriptions of him by contemporaries, which describe him as a young handsome man, and a young man, brown-skinned, with a pleasant face and a handsome appearance. And that's about it. We really wanted to represent him somehow, even if it meant taking a few artistic liberties, because of what a fascinating figure he was. So what we've done is create a version of him from his own time, and then another of the same man in the modern day. So, let's take a look at the face of Mansa Musa. So, what do you guys think of the richest man of all time? Was his wealth as vast as they say it was? Or was it all some sort of elaborate political showing? Let us know what you think of this recreation and more below. And as always, thank you for watching. It's been a pleasure talking history with you. Until next time.